The sting of her palm still burned on my cheek. At 16, I'd never been hit by anyone, let alone in front of a cabin full of strangers. Gasps echoed. Camera phones lifted. "People like you don't belong up here," she sneered, her uniform crisp, her smile venomous. I could taste copper on my tongue, feel every stare drilling into me. My fingers tightened around my phone. For years, I'd promised myself I'd never use my father's influence. But some moments demand more than silence. I took a breath, dialed his number, and spoke 3 words that would change everything. The first-class cabin smelled faintly of leather and citrus polish, the kind of scent that promised comfort. I slid into seat 2A, my backpack tucked neatly under the seat in front of me. 16 years old, alone on a cross-country flight for the first time. This was supposed to feel like freedom. Dad had smiled that morning, telling me I'd be fine, that the world was ready for me. I wasn't so sure, but I wanted to believe him. The hum of conversation wrapped around me. Businessmen comparing numbers, a woman laughing softly into her phone. Then she appeared. Victoria Hale, tall, pressed uniform, her hair scraped into a severe bun. Her eyes scanned me like I was an error in her system. "Ticket," she snapped, palm out. I pulled out my boarding pass, smiling politely. She stared at it longer than necessary. "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" The words dripped with disbelief. "Yes, ma'am. 2A. It's printed right there." Her lips thinned. "ID." She hadn't asked the man across the aisle for his. Still, I handed it over. Her gaze flicked between my face and the card, her jaw tightening. She shoved it back into my hand. "Be aware, we have high standards here." She moved away, serving champagne to others without looking at me. I felt the warmth in my chest from excitement begin to cool. An hour later, I pressed the call button for water. She ignored it, twice. When she finally appeared, she sighed, as though the request itself were an inconvenience. Then, without warning, her elbow caught my cup, sending cold water splashing over my laptop. "I'm so sorry," she said flatly, dropping 2 napkins onto the mess. "We're short on supplies." I could feel eyes on me from other passengers. A middle-aged man in 3B frowned. I nodded at him faintly, trying not to react. Dinner service came. My tray arrived last, food cold, vegetables limp. "It's cold," I said gently. Her smile sharpened. "If you don't like our service, maybe you should sit in economy. Better yet," she leaned closer, her voice a low, poisonous hiss. "People like you don't belong up here anyway." The sting came before I processed the movement. Her palm cracked across my cheek, snapping my head to the side. Gasps burst around us. The copper taste of blood spread in my mouth. Phones lifted into the air, but one man in the corner didn't look shocked. His lens focused steady, his mouth curved in a knowing smirk. Whoever he wasn't filming to help me. I didn't know why, but my gut told me his footage would cause me more trouble than hers ever could. My fingers found my phone. I inhaled slowly, feeling my pulse in my bruised cheek. Then I dialed. The phone call had been short. Dad's voice, calm but edged with something sharper, told me to stay put. "Don't engage. I'll handle it." The line went dead, leaving me with the thrum of the engines and 100 eyes still on me. I sank back into my seat, letting the cool leather cradle me. 16 years old, and I'd already learned that silence could be a shield. Most kids my age might have yelled, demanded justice right then and there. But I knew how fast the story could twist, how easily they'd slap the label on me, entitled, spoiled, using Daddy's billions to throw a tantrum. Malcolm Brooks, my father, had built Novalink from a 1-bedroom apartment into a global tech giant. To most of the world, he was a symbol of innovation and power. To me, he was the man who taught me chess at 6 and told me that in life, every move should be calculated 3 steps ahead. He'd faced more doors slammed in his face than I could imagine, all because of the color of his skin. His solution wasn't to kick those doors down, it was to own the building. I'd grown up in that shadow, trying to prove I could stand on my own. I took public buses to school when I could. I wore plain hoodies instead of designer labels. I never once bragged about the private jet or the villa in Santorini. And until today, I'd never needed Operation Icefall, the quiet, devastating system my father had designed to deal with moments exactly like this. My gaze drifted to the man with the camera in the corner. Mid-40s, tan leather jacket, mirrored sunglasses even indoors. He wasn't just recording. His phone was angled deliberately, capturing me at my worst. Jaw tight, eyes narrowed, blood at the corner of my lip. It wasn't evidence. It was ammunition. When the flight attendant walked past him, he gave her a slight nod, like they were in on the same joke. My stomach turned. I had seen his face before, not in person, but on gossip sites my classmates whispered about. Lance Porter, a bottom-feeder journalist who made his living selling half-truths and fabricated scandals to anyone willing to pay. I could already see the headlines. Billionaire's son melts down in first class. The slap wouldn't make the lead. My supposed arrogance would. I forced my expression into neutrality, though inside, I wanted to rip that phone from his hands. Dad's voice echoed in my head. Control the board, son, not just your piece. So I stayed quiet. Let him think he had me cornered. Because if there was one thing Malcolm Brooks had drilled into me, it was that every predator thinks they're the hunter until the avalanche start. The air in the cabin felt heavier now, thick with unspoken tension. I could feel passengers stealing glances at me, then quickly looking away when I met their eyes. It wasn't pity exactly, more like curiosity, the kind you get when someone spots a crack in the glass and waits to see if it will shatter. I decided to test the waters. Pressing the call button, I kept my posture calm, my voice even when Victoria appeared. "May I have a bottle of water, please?" Her eyes narrowed, scanning me like I'd just asked for champagne and caviar. "We'll see if we have any left," she said, tone syrupy but edged with steel. Then she vanished. 10 minutes passed, then 20. I pressed the button again. This time she returned with a glass, no bottle, and set it down with just enough force to slosh water onto my armrest. I picked it up anyway, choosing not to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. For a moment, I thought maybe the worst was over. Then came dinner service. She approached with my tray last, her movements slow, deliberate. The plate clinked onto my table. The chicken was pale, the vegetables limp. "It's cold," I said quietly, not accusing, just stating fact. She smiled without warmth. "Guess you'll have to eat faster next time." And before I could respond, her elbow knocked my cup over, straight onto my open laptop. The water seeped into the keyboard instantly. A sharp breath caught in my throat as I reached for napkins, but she just stood there, one hand on her hip, watching me mop up the mess. Then came the laugh, a short, dismissive huff that told me this was exactly what she'd wanted. "That's going to be expensive," she said, almost cheerfully. "Shame you didn't get the extended warranty." My fingers itched to say something sharp, but I remembered Dad's advice. Never give them the outburst they want. So instead, I reached for my phone. Before I could type, it buzzed with an incoming message. "Dad." Just 3 words glowed on the screen. "Keep calm, setting the stage." I knew what that meant. Operation Icefall wasn't just a reaction. It was a sequence, a chain of quiet moves that built into something unstoppable. If Dad was setting the stage, then every insult, every calculated humiliation was about to have consequences far beyond this flight. I slid the phone back into my pocket, the sting of her laugh still in my ears, but a different kind of heat building in my chest. She thought she was winning. She had no idea the avalanche had already begun to rumble above her head. The cabin lights dimmed slightly as the dinner trays were cleared away. I slipped my wallet from my jacket, more out of habit than need, and the gleam of the Novalink Platinum card caught the overhead light. It was heavier than a normal card, etched with my father's company logo, a symbol most people in the tech world recognized instantly. I was tucking it back when a shadow fell over my seat. A younger flight attendant, mid-20s maybe, stood there holding a bottle of water. His eyes flicked to the card, then to my face, and in that instant, something shifted. His expression tightened, not with suspicion, but recognition. "Complimentary, sir," he murmured, setting the bottle down with unusual care. His gaze held mine a second longer than necessary, and I caught the faintest nod. Not the kind strangers give, but the kind that says, "I know who you are." Before I could speak, a sharp voice sliced through the moment. "Daniel." Victoria stood a few feet away, arms crossed, her eyes like ice. The young attendant straightened immediately, but I could see the tension in his jaw. "What exactly are you doing here?" she asked, her tone laced with accusation. "Delivering water to the passenger in 2A, he replied evenly. Her eyes darted to me, then back to him. "We have procedures, Daniel. You follow the service order, not personal preferences." "It wasn't," I said. "Follow the order," she cut in, her voice sharp enough to draw a glance from nearby passengers. Daniel hesitated, then gave me one last look before walking away. It was quick, almost imperceptible, but I caught it, the faintest trace of defiance in his step. As the rest of the cabin settled back into quiet, my phone buzzed with another message from Dad. Just 2 words this time. "He's ours." The realization clicked into place. Daniel wasn't just a sympathetic crew member. He was one of Dad's plants, part of a network embedded in key industries. People who could feed him information when needed, or step in quietly when things went wrong. It was classic Malcolm Brooks, never relying solely on systems you couldn't control. He told me once, "If you don't own the board, you place your pieces carefully on someone else's." A part of me felt relief. Someone here was on my side, but another part worried for him. If Victoria suspected, Daniel's position could be in danger, and given the way she'd looked at me all flight, she'd happily burn him if it meant tightening her grip. I glanced toward the galley, where Daniel disappeared behind the curtain. One ally in enemy territory. The game had just gotten more interesting. I waited until Victoria disappeared into the galley before pulling my phone from my pocket. The cabin was quiet, the hum of the engines masking the faint taps of my fingers on the screen. 3 words, typed and sent through a secure app Dad had installed on my phone months ago. "Initiate icefall now." There was no fanfare, no flashing alerts. Just a brief confirmation ping and the message vanishing from the screen. Somewhere on the ground, gears were already turning. Legal teams mobilizing, corporate contracts freezing, data packets racing through encrypted channels to trigger the first steps of Dad's plan. For the first time since boarding, I felt control seep back into my hands. Not complete control, never that, but enough to steady my breathing. This was the move Victoria would never see coming. The satisfaction lasted all of 5 minutes. My phone buzzed again, this time with a different encryption key. Camille Price, Dad's most trusted legal mind, and the woman who'd been like an aunt to me growing up. Her message was short, but it cut through me. "Jaden, be careful. We have a leak." I frowned, thumbs flying. "What kind of leak?" The reply came fast. "Internal. Someone close to your father. If they know we're running icefall, they could warn Skylux." The hum in my ears grew louder. "Who?" I asked. Camille hesitated, a rare thing for her. Then, "Evan." My stomach dropped. Evan Carter, Dad's executive assistant for nearly a decade. The man who'd picked me up from school when Dad was overseas, who remembered my birthday every year, who'd taught me how to make a perfect grilled cheese when I was 10. "Are you sure?" I typed, hoping she'd tell me it was a misunderstanding. "Positive. We traced metadata from a document leak straight to a secure login. He's been feeding Kane's office for weeks." The air in the cabin suddenly felt stale, my chest tightening as I replayed every conversation I'd had with Evan in the last month. He'd been in the house the morning I left for this trip. Had he known this would happen? Had he known Victoria was going to be on this flight? I swallowed hard, my hand tightening around the phone. This wasn't just about a betrayal. It was about timing. If Evan had already tipped off Sky Lux, Icefall's opening moves could be compromised before they even hit. I forced my expression neutral, sliding the phone away as a passenger passed by. Camille's last message pulsed in my mind. Don't trust anyone new on that crew except Daniel, and don't let Victoria see you sweat. Easier said than done, when the ground beneath you had just shifted. By the time the plane cut through the Midwest skies, my phone was vibrating non-stop. I switched it to low brightness and angled it away from curious eyes. News alert stacked on the lock screen. Video of first-class altercation goes viral. Sky Lux slap trending worldwide. Sky Lux stock down 8% in 2 hours. I tapped one link. The raw footage was everywhere. Passengers' shaky phone videos capturing Victoria's hand connecting with my face, the sharp intake of breath from the cabin, the stunned silence afterward. In the unedited clips, it was undeniable. She'd crossed the line in full view of a dozen witnesses. For a brief moment, I let myself feel it. The vindication, the public's outrage swelling on my behalf. Comments flooded in. Unacceptable behavior. Sue them into the ground. This is why we need accountability in airlines. Then came the shift. Another alert popped up from a different news outlet, one I recognized for its tabloid-style headlines. Billionaire's son reportedly intoxicated. Causes seen on flight. My pulse quickened as I opened the article. There it was, a video, but not the one I just watched. This version was slicker, edited. Gone was the slap. In its place, the clip began with me leaning forward, my hands tense on the armrests. The narration claimed I'd been verbally aggressive and visibly impaired, citing unnamed passengers as sources. A blurry still frame caught me mid-sentence, lips parted, making it look like I was shouting. My jaw tightened. This wasn't just a random smear. This was deliberate damage control, and I could guess exactly who was behind it. Richard Kane's reputation for deploying media spin was legendary in corporate circles. The man could make a fire look like a candlelight dinner if it served his agenda. I scrolled further and spotted the byline. My stomach sank. Lance Porter. Of course, the man with the camera in the corner wasn't just passively observing. He'd been crafting this hit piece from the moment we left the gate. I replayed the edited video twice, noting each suspicious cut. The slap was gone, the insults reduced to muffled audio under cabin noise, and my calm requests for water reframed as demands. Even the man in 3B, who'd clearly looked disturbed by Victoria's behavior, was cropped out entirely. Camille's earlier warning about the leak echoed in my head. If Kane already had Evan feeding him intel, pairing that with Lance's footage was the perfect two-pronged attack. Discredit me publicly while slowing Icefall's momentum behind the scenes. I exhaled slowly, forcing my grip on the phone to loosen. This was exactly why Dad had designed Icefall as more than a single strike. It was meant to survive counterattacks. Still, seeing my name dragged across the internet in real time was like watching a slow-motion punch you couldn't block. The war had gone public, and the other side had just landed their first counterblow. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, unusually tense. Ladies and gentlemen, due to operational directives, we will be making an unscheduled landing in Chicago. Please remain seated. Around me, passengers exchanged puzzled glances. I caught Daniel's eyes from the galley. His expression told me this wasn't about weather or mechanical issues. This was Icefall, moving into its next phase. As the plane descended, my phone buzzed with a barrage of notifications. My name was trending now, not just the hashtag. Someone had leaked my identity to the press. Photos of me at charity events, at Dad's side during tech conferences. Even my high school yearbook picture flashed across news sites. Aiden Brooks, son of tech billionaire Malcolm Brooks, at the center of airline controversy. By the time we taxied to the gate, reporters were already at O'Hare. Security escorted me through a side exit, but not before I heard the shouted questions. Jaden, did you provoke the incident? Is your father using his power to punish the airline? The public outrage was peaking, until Richard Kane stepped into the spotlight. I saw the feed on my phone in the airport lounge. Perfectly tailored suit, somber expression, the picture of corporate gravitas. Skylux Airlines takes these allegations seriously, he began smoothly. However, we believe there has been a misunderstanding. Then he cued it. The edited video Lance Porter had crafted. On national television, the slap was missing, replaced with footage that made me look restless, impatient. Kane's voiceover was calm, reasonable. We must be cautious before condemning our hard-working crew based on incomplete narratives. I watched the comments flood in on the live stream. Some people bought it. Maybe the kid was acting out. You can't believe everything you see online. The certainty of the morning was already cracking under the weight of manufactured doubt. For a moment, I felt that hollow drop in my stomach. The sense that we were losing the narrative. Icefall was supposed to be decisive, but Kane's spin machine was fast and ruthless. Then my phone lit up with a new message from Camille. We have the original. She sent a short clip. A woman's voice I didn't recognize narrated over the unedited footage, highlighting each insult, each pause before the slap, each passenger's reaction. The resolution was sharper than anything on social media. The audio crystal clear. Mara Velasquez, independent investigative journalist. The credit read. I remembered her from a panel Dad had spoken at. A fearless reporter who didn't play favorites. She must have gotten the video from another passenger before Kane's team could bury it. Going live in 1 hour, Camille's follow-up said. Once she publishes, Kane can't spin it away. For the first time since boarding, I smiled. Not wide, but enough to feel it break through the tension in my jaw. The truth was about to get its turn on the stage. Mara Velasquez didn't just release the original video. She dismantled Skylux's narrative piece by piece. Her report opened with the full, uncut footage. Victoria leaning over me, delivering the insult, the audible crack of her hand against my face, the shocked gasps, and the passengers instinctively reaching for their phones. She then interwove eyewitness interviews, faces blurred, voices altered for privacy, each one corroborating what happened. The final blow was an on-screen timeline comparing the real sequence to Kane's edited version, exposing every cut and manipulation. Within 30 minutes of the video going live, Skylux's public relations department issued a terse statement. Victoria Hale has been placed on immediate suspension pending investigation. The phrasing was corporate cold, but the effect was electric. Comment sections lit up with "too late," "damage control," and "why wasn't she fired outright?" I watched the live feed in a quiet conference room at O'Hare, Camille pacing while she fielded calls. Daniel had been discreetly escorted in after our landing, his expression carefully neutral. The news played on the muted television, a grainy still of Victoria being led away by airport security. But then came the twist. During a hastily arranged press conference, Victoria stood flanked by her union representative and a high-profile defense attorney. Her hair was down now, makeup minimal, the image of a wronged employee. I was following orders, she told the assembled press. Specific instructions from my superiors about maintaining the atmosphere in first class. She paused just long enough for the implication to sink in. Mr. Kane himself made it clear certain passengers should be handled differently. Reporters erupted with questions, but she said nothing more, letting the suggestion hang in the air like smoke. Kane, of course, immediately denied it, calling her claims an outrageous fabrication from a disgruntled employee. Still, the seed was planted. Camille's phone buzzed. She read the message, then looked at me with a glint in her eye. "It's worse than we thought," she said. "We've just confirmed the existence of a passenger watch list, Skylux's internal blacklist for anyone who's filed discrimination complaints in the past decade." My pulse kicked up. "Blacklist?" She nodded grimly. "Names flagged in their booking system, marked for enhanced screening. And, get this, service limitations. Over 300 people, mostly people of color." The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about me or Victoria's actions. This was systemic, deliberate. And now, Thanks to Victoria's slip and Mara's timing, the investigation had a whole new target. Camille smiled thinly. Kane wanted to play the media game. Let's see how he handles a federal one. For the first time since stepping on that plane, I felt the tide turn in more than just my favor. It was pulling the whole rotten structure into the current. The morning after Victoria's press conference, federal involvement was official. The Department of Transportation, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and even a congressional subcommittee announced joint inquiries into Skylux's practices. Subpoenas were already on their way to corporate headquarters. News anchors called it a watershed moment for airline accountability. Stock analysts projected catastrophic losses for Skylux unless a complete overhaul was implemented. The company's shares dropped another 14% before noon. For the first time, Kane wasn't just fighting public opinion. He was facing the full weight of government scrutiny. But Kane was nothing if not opportunistic. In a private corner of the Skylux executive suite, he initiated his counterstrike. A single encrypted message went out to a number only one person in Malcolm Brooks' inner circle should have had. Evan Carter. Evan had always been the steady presence at my father's side. The man who remembered every appointment, every document, every security clearance code. Which is why Camille's earlier revelation had felt like a knife to the ribs. Now Kane was dangling bait. A lucrative offshore account in exchange for details about Operation Icefall, specifically the sequence of moves that hadn't yet been made public. I only learned about the offer hours later, in a secure call from Camille. "Kane's going for the jugular," she said, voice tight. "He wants the last stage of Icefall before it's deployed." I braced myself for the inevitable betrayal, but then Camille's tone shifted. "Except Evan didn't give it to him." I blinked. "He didn't?" "No," she said. "He gave him something else. Something we planted." It took me a moment to process. Camille explained that the moment we'd confirmed Evan as the leak, Dad had insisted on keeping him close, rather than cutting him off. They'd fed him sanitized intel for weeks, waiting for the right time to let him hand Kane a poisoned gift. The information Evan passed over was a blueprint for an entirely fictional final phase of Icefall. A plan involving non-existent shell companies, falsified regulatory loopholes, and a fake overseas partner. If Kane acted on it, he'd be stepping into a trap visible to every federal investigator already watching him. As Camille put it, we're not just cutting off his legs, we're making him walk into quicksand while smiling. The thought of Evan, once the source of my anger, now playing double agent at my father's request, was disorienting. Betrayal had morphed into strategy, and Kane, for all his cunning, had no idea he was carrying a live grenade in his pocket. Somewhere above the noise of the news cycle, I could almost hear Dad's voice. "Never waste a traitor. Use them until the last card is played." The media floodgates opened wider than anyone expected. In the days following the federal announcements, former Skylux passengers began stepping forward in droves. Local news segments featured retirees recounting how they were repeatedly, randomly checked in first class. Business travelers described being served last despite paying for premium seats. A well-known surgeon spoke of being removed from a flight because a more important passenger needed his seat, a white businessman who boarded minutes later. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Hashtags like #MySkyluxStory and #NoMoreBlacklist trended for days. Each post chipped away at the company's defenses, making it clear Victoria's actions weren't an anomaly. They were policy. Then came the call from Camille that dropped my stomach into my shoes. "We've lost a witness," she said without preamble. I was in my room at Dad's townhouse in Chicago, scrolling through yet another viral testimony. Lost? One of our key witnesses, someone from the crew on your flight, missed a scheduled prep meeting with federal investigators. His phone's dead. His apartment is empty. The cold in her voice told me it wasn't coincidence. "Who was it?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "Daniel," she confirmed. I gripped the edge of my desk. The image of him setting that bottle of water on my tray, eyes steady with quiet recognition, flashed in my mind. He wasn't just a helpful stranger. He'd been my only ally in that cabin. What happened? Skylux terminated him 2 days ago, citing procedural violations. Since then, we believe he's been threatened into disappearing. He hasn't contacted family. We think Kane's people got to him. A pressure built in my chest. Not just anger, but a sick twist of guilt. Daniel had stepped into the line of fire to help me, and now he was paying for it. Camille didn't soften the blow. Without his testimony, we lose one of the few first-hand accounts from inside the crew, and Kane knows it. I paced the room, the carpet muffling my steps. Then we find him, I said. She was quiet for a beat. We're trying, but understand, if they're willing to do this to him, it's a warning to others. The longer he stays missing, the harder it gets to convince anyone else to come forward. Outside my window, Chicago's skyline cut into the dusk, its lights flickering like signals in code. I thought of Dad's rule about allies. Protect them, or you'll fight your next battle alone. Daniel had put himself on the board for me. Now it was my move to bring him back. The boardroom at Skylux headquarters was nothing like the bustling image the public imagined. Behind closed doors, the atmosphere was thick with resignation and quiet panic. Weeks of relentless headlines, tanking stock prices, and now a federal investigation had cornered the board into making a decision they could no longer postpone. By unanimous vote, they removed Richard Kane as Vice President of Operations. The announcement, released just after dawn, was a cold corporate statement, but the effect was seismic. News outlets ran it on a loop. Kane out amid discrimination scandal. Shares ticked upward slightly. Not because the market had faith in Skylux yet, but because they'd finally cut loose an anchor dragging them down. The board also signed a public agreement committing to sweeping reforms. Independent oversight on all discrimination complaints, mandatory equity training for all employees, removal of the passenger watch list, and a $50 million restitution fund for affected passengers. It was the clearest sign yet that Icefall was achieving its purpose, but the victory high didn't last long. That evening, Camille called me with a new complication. "Victoria's trying to bargain," she said. I frowned. Bargain for what? She's already suspended. She's threatening to go public with information about your father, claims about his business dealings from years ago. Nothing criminal, but spun the right way, it could be damaging. She wants immunity from the company and protection from us in exchange for staying quiet. My stomach tightened. Dad's record was clean, but I knew how truth could be twisted in the media. Even a whiff of impropriety could become weeks of distracting headlines. "What's she got?" I asked. "Emails, old memos, some taken out of context, some fabricated. Enough to muddy the water." I hated the idea of bending to her demands. But before I could suggest anything, Camille's tone shifted. I could almost hear her smile. "We're not giving her anything," she said. "In fact, we're going to beat her to it." The next morning, Camille held a press conference flanked by independent auditors. She laid out every single piece of information Victoria had threatened to release, paired with full context, corroborating documents, and expert testimony showing the supposed scandals were either false or had already been publicly addressed years ago. By the end, Victoria's dirt looked like nothing more than a desperate bluff. The press moved on before she could even respond. Camille's closing line echoed in every headline. "Transparency isn't a weakness, it's armor." For the first time, I understood that winning wasn't just about proving the other side wrong. Sometimes it was about stripping away every weapon they thought they had, until they were left with nothing but silence. 6 months later, O'Hare's winter chill bit through my coat as I walked toward the gate. The boarding pass in my hand read the same destination and seat number as that day, 2A, Skylux Airlines. Only now, the company's logo carried the weight of a promise. The reforms they'd committed to were in effect. The moment I stepped on board, I noticed the difference. Smiles met me at the door, warm and unforced. The flight attendant, a young woman named Rosa, greeted me by name, offering water before I even sat down. My seat was spotless, My meal order confirmed without hesitation. It wasn't just me. All around, passengers of every background were treated with the same attentiveness. The quiet hum of civility replaced the tense, unspoken divisions I remembered. Halfway through boarding, I noticed a boy, maybe 14, enter with a middle-aged man who looked like his guardian. They were seated a few rows ahead, but I could hear the exchange when a senior attendant questioned their tickets, voice tinged with skepticism. The boy's shoulders tightened. I knew that posture, trying to shrink, to disappear before things escalated. I rose and approached calmly. "Is there a problem here?" I asked. The attendant stiffened, perhaps recognizing my face from the old headlines. "No problem, sir. Just verifying seating." I glanced at the boy's ticket. It matched his seat. "Then let's make sure he gets settled," I said, my tone firm but polite. Rosa appeared moments later, stepping in with a smile and guiding them to their places without further comment. The boy looked at me as he sat down, uncertainty giving way to curiosity. You're the guy from the video, aren't you? The one who—" I nodded, cutting him off gently. "Doesn't matter what they called it. What matters is it doesn't happen to you." His guardian thanked me quietly. As they turned away, I caught a detail that made my breath hitch. The boy's last name on the boarding pass. Kane. Later, Rosa confirmed it in a hushed tone. "Richard Kane's nephew," she said. "Flying with his uncle's brother. New foster situation." I sat back in my seat, absorbing the irony. The man who'd tried to dismantle me, who'd built policies to keep people like me out of first class, now had his own family shielded by the very changes he'd fought against. It struck me then, change doesn't ask for permission, and it doesn't stop at the people who earned it. Sometimes it reaches further, touching those who once stood on the other side. As the plane lifted into the clouds, I glanced ahead at the boy, now smiling as Rosa brought him a snack. Maybe that was the quiet victory Dad had always talked about, not just tearing down walls, but making sure no one rebuilt them.